Real Madrid just slammed the door shut on Enzo Fernandez. It was an official, on-the-record execution that instantly killed the biggest transfer saga of his entire career. The star who desperately wanted out of Chelsea, holding out only for Madrid, who was ready to commit to a 5-year contract, only to get a cold refusal. And that rejection cuts way deeper than any transfer fee. Real Madrid's manager absolutely loved him, and the fans practically begged for him. Yet, just 3 days after Enzo Fernandez received a red card in the World Cup final against Spain, the Spanish giants who once called him their ultimate priority permanently closed the file. This is how Enzo Fernandez's absolute dream transfer collapsed in 90 minutes. To truly understand this shocking collapse, we have to look way past that final. We must go back to when the move first started to feel real. Marc Cucurella traded Chelsea for Real Madrid earlier this summer, and he certainly did not pack his bags quietly. Almost immediately after arriving at the Bernabeu, Cucurella reportedly contacted his former teammate directly, practically begging Fernandez to follow him to Spain. There is a deeply personal side to this that normal transfer gossip completely misses. Chelsea's brand new boss, Xabi Alonso, actually starred for Real Madrid under the legendary Jose Mourinho, the exact same Mourinho who is now aggressively trying to steal his best midfielder. Alonso already watched Cucurella escape to his former club. Losing Fernandez as well would not just be a transfer, it would feel deeply personal. There is reportedly almost zero warmth left between those two managers these days. Alonso spent years playing under Mourinho's massive shadow, studying the game from him before finally standing on the opposite touchline as his rival. Now their entire dynamic has completely flipped. Mourinho is actively trying to tear apart Alonso's new midfield, one painful departure at a time. Every single headline linking Fernandez to Madrid was secretly a dramatic test of whether Alonso could keep his own Stamford Bridge dressing room intact against his former mentor's wishes. Fernandez had made his true feelings perfectly obvious well before this summer. Back in March, during an unauthorized interview that absolutely furious Chelsea chiefs detested, he admitted he wanted to live in Spain, specifically Madrid. The club immediately suspended him for 2 matches. He spoke out anyway, fully aware of the consequences. Meanwhile, his agent, Javier Pastore, aggressively kept the rumors burning all summer long. Pastore publicly confirmed that the midfielder's camp was actively looking for an exit from Stamford Bridge. While no official deal was signed, absolutely nobody at Chelsea was confused about exactly where his heart was set. On July 3rd, weeks before that massive World Cup final, Real Madrid put out a formal, highly unusual public statement, stamped with the club's official seal. The release flatly denied making any efforts, direct or indirect, to sign Enzo Fernandez. They insisted they had zero intention of pursuing such a deal. Think about that for a second. The mighty Real Madrid actually felt forced to openly deny wanting a player their own manager was desperately pleading to sign. Sources close to the deal said that sudden denial served only one major purpose: to prevent Madrid's passionate fan base from building up massive false expectations for a transfer. The board was not confident they could actually close. That is not a club shutting down a deal. That is a club gently softening the blow, while secretly negotiating in the shadows. Because behind that official statement, the real interest never actually faded. Reports from Marca claimed Mourinho was hunting for a new Luka Modric, a mastermind with the vision and composure to dictate matches from deep. Fernandez was his absolute #1 target, period, standing far above any other option on their summer transfer list. Spanish outlets reported that Fernandez was completely ready to sign a 5-year deal. The single remaining roadblock was the price tag. Chelsea's asking price kept shifting depending on who you asked. Some said £120 million. Others claimed £138 million. Others whispered £140 million. No matter which astronomical figure was true, it made Real Madrid freeze before a single ball was kicked in the World Cup. But if you think this drama ends with a high price tag and some corporate PR statement, you are dead wrong. Because what went down next during that historic tournament is what actually sealed the fate of this entire blockbuster deal. Then the tournament exploded. Fernandez scored the sensational goal that sent England packing. He celebrated right in front of the English fans, a hostile move that turned a whole nation against him. He proudly stood behind a political banner that dragged an old, bitter war back into the spotlight. It made him a massive star, but it did not make him a safer investment. 4 days later, he walked onto the pitch to face Spain. Absolute discipline was the core strategy against a relentless Spanish defense that had conceded only one single goal all tournament. Fernandez lost his cool deep in stoppage time, second yellow, straight red. Argentina finished the final a man down. Ferran Torres scored in the 106th minute, making Spain world champions. Defensa Central reports that the red card did not actually trigger Real Madrid's doubts. Instead, it simply confirmed fears already lingering inside the club regarding how Fernandes makes critical decisions under the absolute highest pressure. The report pulls no punches. The massive cost of the operation, paired with his lackluster performance, made this entire transfer incredibly difficult for the club to justify. 3 days after the final whistle, the decision became completely official. Real Madrid officially closed the file on Enzo Fernandez. There is a second layer to this painful story that makes it sting more. Rodri, who went head-to-head against Fernandes in that very final, had also been sitting right near the top of Real Madrid's midfield transfer list. 2 massive names, 2 dreams, gone in the exact same week, for 2 completely different reasons. Rodri needs serious back surgery, and Fernandes has a red card that will keep playing on a loop. Yet Real Madrid did not walk away empty-handed either. Instead of gambling on Fernandes, the club decided to extend Aurelien Tchouameni's contract. The player Mourinho was supposedly ready to replace ended up being the very one he kept. Still, Fernandes was never the only target on their list. Speculation throughout the entire summer consistently linked Real Madrid to Ayoub Buhadi, Alexis Mac Allister, Sandro Tonali, and Matthias Fernandes as potential alternatives at that exact position. Every single one of those options was cheaper than Fernandes, and none of them came with the baggage of a red card in a World Cup final attached to their name. But in the end, the club did not sign any of them either. They simply chose to stick with what they already had. That final decision really speaks for itself. When a club with more than 300 million euros of summer spending power would rather extend a player already in the building than gamble on the one man its manager wanted most, that message is not subtle. The risk simply stopped being worth it. Chelsea, for what it is worth, never seemed to treat this transfer as fully real either. Fernandes still has 6 years left on his contract, and the club's high asking price never budged to accommodate Real Madrid's hesitation. Even if Chelsea sensed the deal was cooling down before the World Cup even kicked off, they gave no sign of lowering their asking price to save it. Fernandes is still under contract at Chelsea until 2032. Xabi Alonso has even stated publicly that he absolutely wants to keep him. Whether the club truly still wants him, or simply has no better alternative left after Real Madrid walked away, is a completely different question. Perhaps this really is just about the money. Perhaps a massive fee north of £120 million was always going to be too rich for a club that had just spent big on Cucurella, Bernardo Silva, and Ibrahima Konate in the very same transfer window. Sometimes football finance really can be that simple. But perhaps not. Perhaps a club that had already drafted a statement distancing itself from him weeks before he ever kicked a ball in the World Cup final was simply looking for an excuse all along. And perhaps a dramatic red card against Spain, in a Spanish club's own home country on the sport's biggest stage, was exactly the final excuse they needed. Enzo Fernandez spoke out publicly, even risking a heavy suspension over his words. He waited an entire summer for a phone call that might have already been written off in a draft statement before he even played a single minute of the World Cup. So, was this simply a club cautiously protecting its finances after 90 incredibly costly minutes? Or was it a decision that had already been made long before he ever set foot on the pitch against Spain?